So today we're going to be talking about another natural hair lie that has to be addressed. And this is the idea that protective styling is either all good or all bad, in that they're all created the same and have the same outcome. I've seen us go from one extreme to the other, with people saying protective styles ruined my hair, I'm never going to do them again. Then on the flip side, you've got people calling every style a protective style, thinking that it's automatically going to help them grow and retain length. But protective styling is not created equally, and it's not some type of magical tool that you can just put on and forget. I think what people forget to realize is that it's not so much to do with what the actual style looks like. It's about how the style was installed, how you take out the style, and what the style is actually doing to your hair while it's in it. You can't just slap synthetic hair on your head and call it a growth strategy. Because of these variances is why we see some people have such great results with protective styling, whilst others actually experience hair loss or hair breakage with them. Here are some important questions that you can ask yourself when you're thinking about putting in a new hairstyle, or if you want to assess if the one that you currently have in is going to actually help you. Number one, how tight is this hairstyle? Because a lot of times women will braid their hair really tight because it'll look nicer, it'll make your parts look neat and easy, and basically just be more presentable overall. But that tightness is pulling on your hair follicles, which can cause temporary or permanent alopecia. I talked about this in a recent video where I shared how I had accidentally given myself temporary alopecia by going against my own advice of how I typically put in my protective styling. I was eventually able to bring those edges back, but if I continued with those same methods, I'm sure it would have been inevitable that the damage would have just become permanent. Another thing to ask yourself is, what kind of hair are you actually using for this protective style? Because certain types of hairs, especially certain types of synthetic hairs, have a tendency to really stick and get tangled a lot with our natural hair. When that happens and it's eventually time to take out the hairstyle, you now have this hairstyle that is pulling out your natural hair strands, which is causing a lot of breakage and damage. The exact opposite of what we're looking for from that protective style. Another question is, are your ends really actually tucked away safely, or are they getting snagged a lot because of the way that they were closed off at the end? The ends are the weakest, most fragile parts of our hair strand. So if we don't take extra care to make sure that they are put away in a safe way, then they're simply just going to break off. And when I say put away in a safe way, it has to be more than just for that one day, because sometimes you put in a style and it seems like your hair is going to be fine for that day, but if this is a protective style where you're going to be keeping it in for a few weeks or even a few months, then you have to ensure that whatever you're doing to your hair is tucking away those ends safely for a long period of time, where nothing is going to get at it and break them over time. Next question would be, how are you going to be moisturizing your hair while it's in this style? Our hair thrives on moisture, and that includes when it's in a protective style. So you have to figure out, how will you be able to actually access your hair in a safe way without having to completely ruin your hair? For some, that could just be washing the hair and then applying some type of oil or cream to the hair afterwards. For others, that may be making sure that your hair is extremely moisturized before being put into that style, because you're not going to be able to access your hair very easily. Others may prefer to use some type of spray where they spray it on the actual style every day or so. It really depends on what style you've actually installed and what's the easiest way to access your hair without ruining the style from having to moisturize it. It's also important to ask yourself, are you giving your hair adequate breaks between these protective styles? You can absolutely go months between protective styling if done properly. However, you shouldn't just let your hair go unattended forever without redoing some aspects of the style, because that's definitely going to cause long-term damage to both your hair strands and potentially your actual hair follicles. There are also some easy questions that you can ask yourself when you have a protective style in, about how you're feeling, to assess whether or not this style is actually helping you. For example, does it feel like your edges are actually screaming for their life on day one? If you feel that type of extreme tightness anywhere on your head after putting in some type of style, whether that's braids, a weave, a wig, whatever, then that is a problem. You should not be feeling discomfort after putting in a hairstyle. This idea that beauty is pain and that doing our hair as young Black girls is supposed to be painful is one of the most toxic beliefs that we've had in the community for years, and it's what leads a lot of us to ignore the initial warning signs, whether it is leaving a relaxer on for too long or having our edges being pulled out slowly. We've been conditioned to just accept this type of slow, torturous pain when it comes to doing our hair, and we withstand it because we're strong, but it ends up doing more harm than good in the long run. You should also ask yourself, are you really protective styling, or are you just hiding your hair? Because I'm sure we've all seen, heard, or been that person who says that they're protective styling, yet you've never, ever seen their hair. Let's not lie to ourselves just to make ourselves feel better. I understand that it can be difficult for some to come to acceptance, full acceptance with our hair based off of everything that's happened in our history, but it doesn't do us any good to not be honest about what we're actually doing. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, are you protective styling, or are you just protecting yourself from your hair? At the end of the day, protective styling should be about preserving the health of your natural hair. And when done properly, protective styling can be absolutely amazing. I know for me, it's been one of the biggest things that has helped me to actually grow my hair over these past few years on my natural hair journey. And along the way, I've experimented with different types of protective styles, and I've learned which ones are better for my hair over time than others. For me personally, I love braids with added hair because I feel like it really helps me to keep my hair strands safe. I love the versatility it gives me, where I can experiment with different colors, different textures, different lengths, and I find maintaining them, washing them to be so easy in comparison to other hairstyles. On the contrary, when I've tried other low manipulation protective hairstyles like twists, buns, etc., I find that they require a lot more maintenance, a lot more upkeep, and I find that the tangling in those hairstyles can be higher. So I prefer to do those when I'm looking to just have in a low manipulation hairstyle for just a couple of weeks, whereas with my braids that I have in on half of my head right now, I can keep these in for a few months and then redo them slowly over time. Like with anything, it's important to just try to keep up with anything. It's important to just constantly be learning and constantly be listening to what your hair needs, because if you don't, that's when you can run into trouble and start to see some damage. And make sure to drop in the comment section below what your experience has been like with protective styling. Has it been more positive or negative? Is it something that you implement into your routine on a regular basis, or do you prefer to just let your hair be free? And until next time, take care of yourself.